Hello and welcome to the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club. I'm Marlo Artist. The Tar Heel Teachers Book Club is our monthly opportunity to dissect great books. Each month I'm joined by a wonderful panel of educators who love dissecting and discussing great texts. We'll start our introductions with our colleague and friend from Carteret County.
Hey everybody, I'm Emily Golightly and I am the K-5 Media Coordinator at Newport Elementary School. I'm excited to be serving as their Certified Employee of the Year and excited to join you guys tonight.
Hello, my name is Kelly Poquette. I'm the 2021 Burroughs Welcome Fund Piedmont Triad Region Teacher of the Year and the K-5 Music Educator at the Alamance Virtual School. I would love to connect with you on Twitter. My handle is @KA
I am Pamela Sands. I am a former media coordinator and current digital learning facilitator. I am a two-time North Carolina School Library Media Association's Media Coordinator of the Year, and you can find me on Twitter at LivingPamtastic.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Arisha Smalls. I am the AIG Elementary Program Specialist for Cumberland County Schools, and you can follow me on Twitter at SmallsArisha.
Hey everyone, my name is Amy Tart and I teach 4th grade ELA and Social Studies for Clinton City Schools. You can follow me on Twitter at Cards for Scholars. Hey everyone, I'm Kelly Wilson and I work for North Carolina Education Corps as a learning coach, and I also am an adjunct instructor at Appalachian State University in Boone. And you can follow me on Twitter at KellyDWilson06.
Awesome. Our November 2021 Tar Heel Teachers Book Club selection is I Am Every Good Thing by Derrick Barnes and Gordon C. James. Be sure to share your thoughts on Twitter by using our hashtag THT Book Club. I Am Every Good Thing is an upbeat, empowering, and important picture book from the team that created the award-winning Crown, an ode to the fresh cut. The confident Black narrator of I Am Every Good Thing is proud of everything that makes him who he is. So Kelly P., I want to start with you. Why did you want us to read this fantastic book? Because you've been on us for a while and we've got to make sure that we pick this book. What was it about the book that really resonated with you?
This book is just, it's beautiful. My librarian, when I was teaching at Pleasant Grove Elementary, Grace Cole, she said, hey, this is an interesting book. And I read it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a music educator. This is applicable to our classroom. We can turn this into a rondo. We can find out what students think make them good, make them every good thing. That's for the instructional strategies portion. But the illustrations are beautiful. The text is so powerful, but not overwhelmingly so. But it made me so emotional. Like I wanted all of my students to see this book and experience this book. And it's just amazing. That's why I wanted us to read this book.
And I love the coincidence that we're actually having this conversation and discussion on your birthday. I think that is just icing on the cake. I love this book. It's a great choice, and I'm glad that you brought it to our attention.
This is the kind of book that every student should read, and really think about what are all of the wonderful things that you are. And like Kelly said, it's simple, as far as the stanzas go, and it's rhythmic, but it's powerful. And, even though there are, few words on each page, they have an impact.
Pam, I agree with you. When I read this book the first time, and I smiled when it said, you're probably smiling. And then there were moments where the illustrations I could tell it was a harder time, and it made me super emotional. And even after I read it and I'm prepared to read it with my students, it still makes me super emotional. And so being able to pick up a book that makes you have feelings throughout the whole thing, so that students can see there's a lot that goes into this and how we can help each other have these feelings and be able to work together.
I would agree with that. And I think too that it shows kids how when you choose your words carefully, just how powerful they can be, in that writing process. I don't think we have enough time to spend with kids on that writing process. And a book like this is such a great model text for, choose your words carefully, and they do have power.
I think that we don't see our young Black boys like this enough. I think that they don't see themselves like this enough. And it would be enriching for any classroom.
I agree, Risha. I mean, it really brings to the forefront the humanity of Black boys. You know, in our society, Black boys are seen as a threat and never have an opportunity just to be seen as little boys or boys that are going through normal things and normal experiences. And to have so many affirmations in this text is so powerful. I mean, I'm 34 years old. And to be able to have this text, I mean, it resonates with me and it empowers me, and so I know it will really be empowering for our young people who read it.
I agree. It made me super emotional. And I think it's because, like, that's how I hope all my kids see themselves. Like, it's my hope for them to each feel that way about themselves. And then, two, one thing that I loved is the STEM portion, the picture where the little boys look at their microscope. I thought it was amazing that, you know, we're highlighting different things that Black boys or any boy can, you know, get into and have that powerful feeling of, I can do anything I put my mind to. So I agree. Made me cry. Probably still will when I read it again.
And Amy, I agree with that. I love the science section. And I don't know if this was intentional or just the way it worked out, but I like that those parts came before the sports pages, the athleticism, the rapping where he's on stage. I thought, you know, not pushing a stereotype, but, you know, they really can do anything, be anything. And I appreciated that that was a focus before some of the other things that people tend to focus on.
I'm just going to be honest, guys. When I got ready to read this book, I had just kind of corrected my son. I have a little Black boy in my house, and I had just corrected him. I think that's the politest way to just say what happened. And I opened it up. I sat down, opened it up. I looked on the first page, and I was like, "Ooh!" It stepped all over my toes because the first line is, I am a nonstop ball of energy. And how this book takes those attributes of just boys and makes them all positive things. I just said to him, oh my gosh, sit down. Like, because he's just all over the place. And I, in that moment, was looking at that as a negative thing, right? But as soon as I opened that book, it definitely was a slap in my face because he is a ball of energy, and that is a good thing.
It's a great thing. It's wonderful to be able to turn those stereotypes on their face and really be able to have such powerful images. What were some of the images that really resonate with you? Because Gordon C. James, I mean, his illustrations are just so stunning. They're so beautiful. What were some of the images that resonated?
Well, I will share with y'all mine, if I can get my lighting right. Right, this is mine. The hug and the embrace. Like, I can feel that hug. And just knowing, you know, the emotions that are going into that, and you can see it in both of their faces, in the adult and the child. And I just love that. And even how dark it is around the outside as well. You know, the picture right next to it is so full of light. And so just knowing it's a touching moment, and it's, I am here. That's the last sentence that goes with that. And just knowing that, yeah, there's going to be hard times, but you are comforted and you have people who will comfort you and want to be there with you.
My favorite is actually opposite the page that has my favorite stanza with it too, where it says, I am not what they may call me, and I will not answer to any name that is not my own. I am what I say I am. And that part makes me want to cry all the time, because I think about all our kids who, like, there's ownership in your name and who you are. And so my favorite image is on the page beside that. Just that little boy, just being him.
My favorite one, I feel like, is the realist painting, right? Is this one with this little boy with the Band-Aid on his forehead. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is the realest one. This is a kid that just had the best time of his life. My kids get bumps and bruises all the time, and they run back inside, and we have to put Band-Aids in odd places. And I tell them, you know, you had a good day. That's sign of true fun, that you had a great time.
Great memories too. I mean, you better tell those stories, and you'll remember why you have that particular bump and that bruise. I really like the swimming pool scene. I really like that because, you know, we have the stereotypes of about black people in swimming. And then you have the families in the back who are watching and just having the kids have a lot of fun. And I have been in these situations. I remember when I worked in Chapel Hill, Carborough City schools. And, you know, it's a predominantly white school district, and our students are under, students of color are under a microscope. And I remember sitting and watching students of color from this school and students of color from that school, and they were just being themselves and just having their experience. I thought, you know, it's really powerful when kids are able just to be themselves and they don't have to put on, they don't have to worry about people judging them, just having a moment of fun and just letting their guard down. And that's what I think this scene represents with the swimming pool. We're just having fun. You know, it's just a chance for us just to really enjoy each other. And I love that in this book.
Favorite is the last picture. This little boy steals my heart every time I get to this page. The dimple, the way he's got his arms crossed like a boss. I love the text where he says, I am worthy to be loved. And then that repetition driving it home, just, yes, he is. And to me, it just reminds me of those people on the dedication page, Tamir Rice and all those children that were listed, all those young Black boys and men, that they started off as this precious little boy. And somehow people don't see them that way sometimes. I don't want anyone to ever lose the fact that they're still that precious little boy inside. And I think that that visual is just a powerful one.
What a great way to end the book.
I'm going to piggyback off of Pamela, like she said, this one. And the more I look at it, like there's two faces here. And the way I perceive this is that it's like they don't look real positive from my perspective. So but I feel like he's just like, it's all good. I am who I say I am. You can say what you want to say, but that's not who I am. And it's wonderful. And I love the verse where it says, I'm good as a cinnamon roll. Earlier in the, I just like good to the core, like a cinnamon roll. Yeah, that good. I'm like, ooh, like I get it. It's very descriptive, and it makes me go, you are that good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't take the two faces in the background as negative. I thought they were like pioneers. They're people who made a difference in history. And I looked at it as if he was being reflected, or they were being reflected in him.
And at the first, when I love what y'all said, where I am a nonstop ball of energy. And then the second thing's powerful and full of light. But then so many pages later is when I see the full of light, you know? And so, you know, it's almost like foreshadowing this page and the illustrations that were coming.
Mm-hmm. So I didn't have my book because one of my fourth graders borrowed it. But my favorite was this picture right here. I loved all the ancestors. You've got Barack Obama and other prominent male figures. Thank you. And I loved that one. Another verse that I love, though, is the part in the book where he says, you know, I may be like a superhero, but I'm still afraid sometimes too. So I love that the book took kind of that turn that says, you know, I put on a tough face and I do believe in myself, but, you know, it's okay if sometimes like you're afraid, you don't feel like, you know, completely confident. So I loved that part of the book. That was my favorite verse.
The full humanity of just being a full-fledged person. I mean, it's on display in this book.
It doesn't sugarcoat things. It moves, you know, it doesn't hang on them, but the when they're not roller skating, skateboarding, and he falls down, he's like, but I get right back up again. And it's really cool. It's like, this happens, but now we move from that.
Mm-hmm.
And my second favorite, because I'm going to jump in with a second favorite, because it wasn't mentioned, is the music. One, because I'm a person who connects with music. Like I live in music every day. Like it's such a part of who I am. And I see that in my kids when I was at the middle school. Like so many of our kids, just connection to music while they work, music while they're walking down the hall, music, and that the illustrations are so full of life and joy and just being in the moment with the music. And I read that page, I don't know how many times, because I sat there and boom bapped with it as I read it. I just kept reading it over because it was so fun.
Mm-hmm. You know they were jamming.
I think that the whole thing is just vivid, like the pictures and then the imagery that goes to the words. Like that's what blows my mind. Like it's a picture book, but I feel like it's a whole, like it could be a whole novel in just those few pages, because the imagery is just so profound in the writing, and then the pictures just, they overwhelm me a second time after the words have already got me, and then the pictures with it, I'm just like, oh gosh, it's truly heart touching. And again, thank you, Kelly P, for bringing awareness to it. I mean, his other books, Crown was one of my favorites. It's one of my students' favorites. So the two of them are just a powerhouse, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think they both have a lot to say, and I think that it's a really great partnership. In both I Am Every Good Thing and in Crown, they have this perspective of the boys looking bigger than life. Like even if you look at the cover, how he's not looking up to anyone, like he's who we're looking up to in this, and I love that perspective.
Well, and
this.
he
Go ahead,
makes me
Emily.
think of illustrations too with the movement. The way he draws. My kiddos, from kindergarten through fifth grade, every class I've read this to is just rapt attention, can't take their eyes off those pages. You feel the movement, you feel the action, and it just really brings these characters and their stories to life. And I just love that about them.
Mm-hmm. Me too. And also, I love this particular scene, and just reiterating that our boys are so many different things to so many different people. Your brother, your cousin, your son, and our society doesn't see that. When we, just in America, when we have the negative stereotypes, you're thinking about the stereotype, but you're not thinking about that is somebody's son, that's somebody's grandson, that's somebody's brother. And I'm just so glad that that was lifted up in the book, just as another reminder, of that humanity.
And like Amy said, these two together are a powerhouse, and I think it's so important what they're doing and what they're writing, because they're writing for a group of young men who don't often see themselves reflected in the books. And this is the age where we need to get these kids in a place where they see themselves in literature, and they form those connections to books and what they're reading. So I'm just so excited to see this kind of representation in our children's lit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of that, when we find books that are mirrors or windows. And I have two little boys at home. And so when I read this book to them, one of mine is full of energy and full of light. And so he could relate to some of these stories, but then also being able to have it as a window as well, so that they can understand, when we talk about just the dedication page alone is a whole conversation piece. And my kids are in 2nd and 5th grade, and letting them know, like, these are things we need to talk about in all aspects. And so using this to have those hard conversations, but then also being able to let them see themselves into the story, so that we can all see, how we're connected and how we should be connected.
Mm-hmm.
Pam, I was looking back at that the artist's artwork that we both really liked, and I do see your perspective too, that maybe those are people that are supporting him as opposed to the people, the nays. I see that too. And what I love about this book too, and I think Emily touched on it and Kelly W touched on it, you can use this for kindergarten through 5th grade. Like, this is not a book that you're like, oh, that's a 2nd grade book. And there's just so many, you could spiral with it. You could bring it back one year and then the next year, and you could do different things with it, because it's just such, I think it's going to touch kids differently depending on how old they are.
I would even say, with the lyricism and the powerful themes behind it, you could teach this right on up through high school, and it's perfectly appropriate.
I agree. And I can't wait for the instructional portion, because I have a way to do just that when we're comparing literature. So I'm excited to share that with you guys a little bit later.
Great.
And to go with that, I could see it very much in a middle school and a high school too, because while the text is straightforward and, not heavy and deep, like everybody can understand it, it's still complex. The words are powerful. The phrasing we talked about before, the word choice and the way that the words make an impact, it's not so simplistic that, you know, a middle schooler or a high schooler is going to look at it like, oh yeah, that's a baby book. I think they would get just as much out of it.
What was some of the language that really resonated? One thing that just stuck out, I mean, I'm a roaring flame of creativity. You know, just kind of like things that you get to see yourself in. And I love that particular phrase because, you know, our kids are at the exploration phase and we need to let them know. And we're such a standardized society where we're always trying to bubble in and try to get the best answer. And I mean, really reminding our kids, you can be a roaring flame of creativity and find your own way and navigate your own path. That line really, really resonated with me.
I love that the whole book is told in first person perspective, because I think then it, like she said, it's a mirror for kids to be able to picture themselves saying that. And then also the metaphors throughout is a figurative language dream. It's amazing. I love, like I said, it's just so lively through the pictures, through the lyrics. It's hard for me to pick just one metaphor though.
My favorite.
Go ahead, Arisha.
I was going to say one of my favorite lines is across from the illustration of them playing in the snow, and it says, "I am every good thing that makes the world go round." That is a powerful, unstoppable force. I'm all those things. And enough said. I just want to snap.
One of my favorites, in addition to the ones I've shared already, is the "I am a sponge," because this is where I see myself soaking up information, knowledge, and wisdom. I want it all, and I am all ears. Like, I want to know all things. Like, give me all the information. So I love that part.
Pam, I was totally going to say that. So since you said that one, my other favorite one was when he goes from the mountains to the ocean. I am that sound in the forest when the mighty tree falls. Like, I really want to know, like, what that means in, like, what the goal was for that one line. Because I just want to know, like, why the mighty tree? You know, like, what was the analogy that was going along with that? And then with the waves, I am waves crashing gently on the shore. I'm a force of nature, a miracle, a blessing. And I love those two words. Like, every children should know they're a miracle and they should know that they're a blessing. So that's my favorite after the one Pam said.
I want to expand on what you just said, because I didn't really think of it when I read it. And the way you said it made me think of it, like the tree falling in the woods when the mighty tree falls. You know, the old saying, like, if a tree falls and nobody's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. So I kind of wonder if that's him saying, like, even if nobody's around to recognize what I'm doing and who I am, like, I am powerful and I'm mighty, like, I'm still making my mark, whether or not you're there to hear it or see it.
Oh, I love that.
It kind of goes back to one of the lines that you guys said before about him when he says, "I am here." It's the same thing. Like, whether anyone is there to witness the greatness, I am great all alone, all by myself.
So
Which is a good message for all kids to understand that, regardless of race, for you just to understand and really ground yourself in your own greatness. I love that. Go ahead, Kelly P.
You know, and for adults too, right? We doubt ourselves too much and everything's great, everything's fine, and we doubt ourselves. Yeah. Okay, so I can't pick the whole book because that's not plausible. But the first one I have is the music one where it's like, I'm the perfect beat, the perfect rhyme, keeping everything on point and always on time, but you already knew that. Like, you already knew. You might not have wanted to admit it, but you knew I was that. And I just, it's like you knew it. I love that. And then the last line. I am worthy to be loved. And I think Kelly W said it, how it happens twice. Like, even now, like when I read it to my kids, I'm like, it's hard to get through because I want them to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what you said. I like what you said, Kelly, about referring to the line about you already knew that. Because we talk about haters all the time. You know, they hate because they see something great. And it's like, but you see me. Like, I know you see me. Like, you know.
And how many of you had like a stream of images of the kids we've taught? We're like, yep, I know that kid. I know that kid. I already know.
Mm-hmm.
One line that really reminded me of the classroom was when they are looking through the telescopes. And he says, I am one eye open, one eye closed, peeking through a microscope, gazing through a telescope, checking out the spaces around me. Like for a second, like I could see kids in a classroom with their one eye looking through. And I just thought it was really clever how you take it from looking at something so small and detailed to looking at something so broad and expansive. So I thought it was very clever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Really
that
clever.
page was one of my favorites as well, but it was the very last part, the plotting out those far off places I've yet to go, but will, that possibility, that open chance of what's going to happen, and the future is wide open for them. And then, like Kelly P said, the cinnamon roll thing, I just keep coming back to that because every time I read this, I have to stop and just talk about cinnamon rolls with my kids because I'm like, y'all, that center is the goodness. It's the
it's so good.
best part. And that's you, every one of you. I said, has anybody ever told you that you're the center of a cinnamon roll? And they all kind of look at me like I'm crazy. But then when they stop and think about it, they're like, yeah, that is the best. And then when they realize that's them, it's like, whoop, whoop, they get a little moment to celebrate themselves, and they need that.
That's awesome. So many great things in this book, and we're so excited that we're going to have a chance to talk with the author and the illustrator about all these wonderful components in this complete masterpiece. So when we return, we'll continue our conversation about I Am Every Good Thing, and we're going to be joined by the author and the illustrator. We'll be right back. Back on the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club, and now we're being joined by the creators of the New York Times best-selling book, I Am Every Good Thing. Please welcome the exceptionally talented author, Derrick Barnes, and the immensely gifted illustrator, Gordon C. James. Thank you both so very much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We are really honored to have both of you on the show and grateful to have two creatives living and thriving here in North Carolina. So my first question is, what does the collaborative process look like for the two of you when you're creating such masterpieces like I Am Every Good Thing, as well as Crown Ode to the Fresh Cut? What does that collaborative process look like?
So for the most part, in this genre, in regards to picture books, the process usually starts with the author. It starts with the manuscript, and that's submitted and okayed by the editor, and the editor and the art director have a meeting, and they try to match up who they think would be the best illustrator for the text. But in this situation, it was kind of different. Gordon and I did Crown on a small press that's based outside of Chicago, and it was on a smaller imprint, Deneen Milner Books. And since I knew Deneen, I asked her if I could choose the person that I want to work with, and ended up asking Gordon. And we were both kind of in the same place in our careers. I hadn't had a book published since like 2010. He hadn't had a book published in a long time, and since they were a small imprint, they really wasn't offering a lot of money. So I was just really gassing it up, like, man, you got to do this project. We're going to get all of our money back, plus, tenfold, on the back end. We're going to win a ton of awards for it, you know what I mean? And he ended up saying yes. And, the rest is history. Crown ended up winning 8 huge, literary awards. And so when it was time to sign with a larger imprint and we got a chance to do I'm Every Good Thing, they allowed us to work together again. Just looked at our track history from that one book, and I Am Every Good Thing ended up, just kind of doing the same thing. But Gordon and I have known each other for over 20 years. We met at Hallmark Cards. And again, for the most part, the author and the illustrator don't even talk to each other, let alone live in the same city, visit each other, go back and forth, about the process, about the text, and about the artwork. And it was a very strange and non-traditional way of creating picture books, but it seemed to work. And hopefully we can do it again. We have like 2 more projects that we're working on together.
It works quite well.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Derrick. Do you have a background in music, or is music something that's always, because your lyricism in your books is really like spot on, and I love it. It's so.
Yeah, thank you. If you can see my wall, this is my office. I have how many I got up there? Those are my. If I was stranded on an island, and I had I'm very old school. If I had a album record player, those are the 7 albums I would want to be stranded with. But growing up in a very musical household, my mother had probably the largest, album collection in the whole neighborhood. So, Friday evenings, Saturday evenings, when everyone would come over to play spades, I play dominoes. We would be listening to a lot of classic R&B, blues, jazz. Coming from Kansas City, Missouri, the home of probably the greatest saxophonist of all time, Charlie Bird Parker. And I'm just a huge hip hop fan and classic jazz music. And I do try to fuse in a little bit of lyricism from the classic golden era of hip hop music. That's maybe in the early 90s all the way up to maybe the late 80s to the late 90s. That's considered the golden era. And I listen to a ton of hip hop music. I'm a huge Stevie Wonder fan. So I think about those lyrics and, the way Stevie just could paint a picture with words, and I've always patterned my writing style after him and Langston Hughes and a lot of other, different songwriters. So.
I have a question for Gordon. Your artwork is so powerful. Has it ever prompted a writer to change the text at all? I know that you and Derrick work closely together, and he mentioned you guys visiting, going back and forth. I kind of want to know, I was wanting to know before the show, like, are they besties today? Because they live in Charlotte. Like, are they besties? I don't know. But has your artwork ever prompted a writer to change even a portion of the text?
No, because I try my best to, I try my best to work in a way that complements what I've been given, right? Like, I feel like that writer has worked really hard on what they're trying to say. And honestly, my goal going forward is to make sure that there aren't little things that I miss in the text that could help to be more descriptive about the writing. So now when I work on newer things, like I would just read it and then I would go to work. But now I keep the page that I'm working on really close by. So I have never done anything that I thought would prompt a writer to change the work. But that being said, like if there were something that I felt would go with the flow of the story, and like if I were to illustrate the scene in a certain way, if I thought it would really, 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 really add to the story, I would make the suggestion. I've just never had the opportunity to do it. I've never felt the need to do it. Let's put it that way. But I would do it. I'm not beyond it, you know?
So my follow-up question is, have you ever created work separate from books, right? Have you ever created something and then you stood back and looked at your artwork and was like, that should be a book. I need somebody to write this story.
Oh, you know what? I actually came to Derrick. This was like years and years ago where I was trying to put together a thing where like he would write to my paintings and I would paint to his writing, and we would kind of like completely stay out of each other's way, right? Like, this is the painting I wrote, this is the painting I did, you write what you feel like, and this is the thing you wrote, this is what I painted, and like just see how it came together. Like that idea didn't ever come to fruition. But, you know, like there's no telling, you know, what could happen in the future.
I will say
this. I'm working on I wrote a book, and because I am a stronger illustrator, clearly, than I am a writer, right? Like I'm not Derrick when I write. So I really did think visually, you know, I thought about what the concept of the book was, and I thought about what I would like to see in a book like that. And then I wrote it. So I kind of worked backwards.
That's pretty cool.
Derrick, I had a question. So I had seen from one of your other interviews that Crown had your third son, Silas, on the cover. So does I Am Everything, does that have one of your sons as the inspiration on the cover?
No, that is actually Gordon's only son,
Wow.
Gabe. Yeah, it's Gordon's son's Gabe, man. And the cover is almost usually the last part of the project because the cover is extremely important. Crown, and I'm probably just being biased here, but it's probably the most beautiful, and not just because it's my son, but just because of the work that Gordon put into it. It's just a very classic cover. And so we had to make sure that the cover of I Am Every Good Thing was just as classic as Crown. And that was an interior image. We had went through a lot of different covers, and that one just kept speaking to me. It was very strong. And the thing I love about it the most is that, and this is just me, I'm sure Gordon sees it a lot differently because, you know, that's his baby. But the cover really spoke to me because, you know, the idea for the book was about our sons and about Black boys all over the country, no matter where they come from, whether they come from the suburbs or they live in the right smack dead, you know, in the middle of the hood. Mm-hmm. They have people that love and care about them and have high expectations for their future. So the fact that he has these oversized pants and these white T-shirt, and you know, you might see boys out in the hood that have their pants sagging and they don't have a belt on. I've met some of the most brilliant Black boys in my life in a juvenile detention center, but the environment that they live in when they go home is not one that will help nurture that brilliance. You know what I mean? So I just thought that Gabe in this white T-shirt really embodied that message that it doesn't matter where these kids come from, they have a future and that they matter to somebody. And he just looks so strong. He looks so confident, man. Gordon, out, you know, go ahead. And
this is what's interesting about both those covers. Like, both of those covers are family photos. So Derrick gave me a bunch of photos of Silas when I was working on the book. And I think one was for the cover and the other one is when he's holding up the two ribbons. Like, those are like actual family moments. And the same with the cover. I was taking pictures of Gabe one day because I thought he looked really cool. And my son he's special needs. He's autistic. And his sister posed him. She came outside. She's like, Gabe, cross your arm. Gabe, spread your legs out. Right. And he just standing there. And like for that moment, like he had like I feel like Gabe is cool, but like he was looking really cool. And he's like standing at the top of the steps in front of our house and I'm down on the ground. So we're looking up at him. And so like it all came together. And I think that if you feel like there's a certain degree of authenticity in the books, it's that when you use your own kids, you don't just have you're not just directing models, because I use models in my books. Like sometimes you get these really authentic, scripted moments, you know, like, and that's a moment between him and his sister where that picture turned out great.
Well, and I have to say, as a librarian, you know, I work with K-5 kiddos, and a lot of those kids are not yet readers. They're reading pictures, but not words. And those covers are what sell them a book. That's how they decide, am I going to pick this up off the shelf and take it home today? And when they see your books, none of them will stay on the shelf more than a hot second because they see that cover and it draws them in every time. I can't keep them on the shelf. It doesn't matter how many copies you have, they love them. It draws them in because they see themselves. That's so real. It's so authentic. And so I love them. They're beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Gordon's amazing, man.
You know, my mother is a reading specialist, and she told me that. She was like, just never underestimate the importance of what you do, because you know, kids read the pictures before they can read the words, you know, like that's how they start out. You find a kid with a book and they're making up the story based on the pictures. And then like they will get, you know, you could get a kid intrigued into, well, let's find out what the story's really about. Let's see, are you right? You know, then all of a sudden you get them reading. And I didn't, you know, I'm not a teacher. I've taught, but I'm not a teacher. And just to hear that, I was like, wow, that's a really different way to think about the importance of pictures in books. And that's something I hadn't considered.
I don't want to miss my opportunity, so I'm just going to jump in real quick since we're talking about the pictures. It was great, right? I loved it. I just wanted one opportunity to do this, like we did in Crown. Will we see that in future books?
I hope so. What I didn't, so it's not an I'm every good thing, right? Because what I didn't want it to be was like the Spike Lee dolly shot. You know what I mean? Like where you just expect it. Like like when it's appropriate for the book, and I feel like it helps to tell the story. With Crown, it was a device where you feel like he's getting up from the chair and he's going from inside to outside into the world. I felt like it was a great device. And I'm really lucky that they let me have that, because I had no idea that it was going to be printed the way that I had asked. When I turned in the book, because, you know, these books are a team thing. So there were other things that I thought should go a certain way in the book that did not go my way, but that one did. And, you know, everybody came together, you know, Deneen and Derrick and our agent, Regina Brooks, and it was a great collaboration, and it made a classic book. And we've really got 2 classic books together.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you have just such strong, beautiful children in your books that I love immediately? Do you feel that you might do a book that would have more, like you mentioned, Gordon, that your child has special needs, like maybe do a book focused on that, or maybe a book focused on students or children that live in a certain area? Do you see getting that specific, or kind of keeping it more like for the whole child?
Go ahead, Gordon.
I know that I've always wanted to do a special needs book. I just have to figure out kind of what it would be about. There's so many kids on the spectrum and so many different ways that it presents. And so, but it's been something that I've been kind of mulling over.
You know, it's really strange as a artist. And I was just thinking about visual artists, you know, musicians, actors. The strange thing is once you reach a certain level of success, you know, the tricky part is balancing that authenticity that you know, that brought you there, but also meeting the needs of, because we're publishing books for, you know, corporations. We have to create books that will reach, you know, the masses, but you still want to keep it real, to use a more layman phrase. You still want to keep it real. And I think that's why those 2 books did extremely well, because I use language, not colloquialisms or, you know, slang, but I use beautiful, rich language that can, you know, that could be understood by the children that I was writing for. Mm-hmm. But now that we've made 2 hit books, it's like we are expected to do that again. At least that pressure is on us. I feel that way, and I'm sure that Gordon feels that way. But you also have to keep in the back of your mind that, all right, I Am Every Good Thing has sold X amount of copies, 6 figures. Crown has done that too. These people are expecting us to do the same thing. So you have to kind of balance it out. I don't want to sell my soul and just write books that aren't saying anything. As I think about the people that I'm writing for, every single time that I sit down, I think about my target audience, and I don't want to not think about them just to, chase a number or to,
You know what? This is how I think about it sometimes. This is how I think about it, right? Like to me, my dad used to listen to the super abstract Miles Davis albums, right? And like as I get older, like I enjoy those, right? That being said, like I know that they're not easy to listen to. And there are some days where I get these ideas and I'm just like, God, I want to do this. Nobody's going to buy this thing I am dying to do. Like, so it's like, where can I find the space to do this? Because you can only do so many of those, right? But yeah. I still want to do a couple things that are just like that, that take too long to do. And like, when I'm at the end, I'm just like, oh my goodness. And maybe like, I'll never see the time or money that I put into it. Like, but I want that thing to be out in the world. Cause like, everything that we do, like it has, you have to do the absolute best you can do within a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So, and that's what I do. That Derrick knows. I will stretch that period of time until the last hour because I could always make it better,
Always. So. And a lot of those Miles Davis albums were cocaine induced. So that could be the reason.
We're not going to do that.
They were really complex, man. A lot of that later stuff.
I have a question for you guys.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
I was just going to ask, Derrick, you mentioned remembering your audience. And I heard Jason Reynolds say not too long ago that when a kid gives him feedback, he knows it's the real deal because they don't mince words and they will speak the truth. So what is a piece of advice that a kid has given you that you think, yeah, I wish I had made that change, or I'm going to think about that when I write my next book? Has a kid ever just really impacted your creative process? And same thing for you, Gordon.
Yeah, when I wrote the Ruby and the Book of Boys series came out in 2007. That was my first series deal with it was with Scholastic, and I remember working on that book. I'm writing a series well, first of all, it was written. I think I wrote the series in like 2005, and it was just called The Book of Boys. And they didn't have a father, and they didn't have a sister. So I just put it away. We couldn't land a book deal for it. My wife asked me about it like in 2006. And she said, "What?" And she gave me the idea to give them a little sister. So I thought about, there wasn't a series out like Junie B. Jones or, Ramona Quimby that featured a African-American girl and her family. So because we had all sons, I had to go and kind of sit and take notes with a couple of my nieces or a couple of my friends that had, daughters. And one of my friends, I read a manuscript to one of the new books that I kind of reworked. And she was like, you're not, I think she was like 10 at the time. She just graduated from college. You're not giving me enough detail. I want to know what that smells like. I want to know what color her shirt was. And so I had gotten accustomed to writing for boys. And so it was that moment that I realized when I'm writing for boys or if I'm writing for girls, I have to recognize that girls are more detail oriented. Boys want action and they want scenes to be quick, and girls want you to paint a perfect picture. They want all their senses tended to, sound, color, the whole picture. And I've always kept that in mind, and not just when I write for boys or girls, but depends on the character and what parts of the story I'm in. So I need to call her and thank her for that, because that was a big turning point in my writing development. And I'm always trying to learn and always trying to get better. I just want to be the best that I can be. So I'm always listening to little bits of advice from other writers to kids, and when I go to school visits. So
I don't think that I've gotten too much advice for kids. I think most of the time when I see them, kids, they're just so friendly. They're just so nice. You know what I mean? So like, they're like, you're welcome. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, kids are super supportive. But I will say that I get all the time, why don't you do girl books? And actually, I have done 2 girl books, 2 in the Scraps of Time series that I did with Patricia McKissack. But they're letting me know that I have to do a girl book. And you know what's interesting, Derrick? Because I have a teenage daughter. And just this morning, she left her phone at home and it had some school notes in it. And she texted, she FaceTimed me from her iPad to tell me it wasn't there, right? And then she's like, oh, because I have my this in it. And then this was happening, that was happening. And I was thinking about this and that. And I was like, why are you telling me all this? Call your mother and have her email you the notes. Like, I don't need to know any of this. All I need to know is you don't have your phone. It's at the house. Call and get your notes. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Forward. All that stuff doesn't matter, right? Like, but
texting is the most important invention made for us, man.
Say it one more time.
I was saying the ability to text was probably the most important invention for us. I don't need all the details. And people call me, it's like, I just want the meat. Just tell me the meat. Usually I'm working.
I believe that life is like super duper simple. Like, they're just giant principles that just apply all over the place. And it drives my daughter crazy because she really believes that if you knew everything, you wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I have a question for y'all, and you're talking to a group of teachers. And so just wondering if you guys had a teacher that really saw in you the amazing gift of illustration and with the writing. And if you had a teacher that you really just feel like they kind of were a turning point for where your journey was and helped make you who you are today.
I had a teacher named Sherry Surratt. The funny thing is, like, I have a picture of her like right here. So that's me and Sherry Surratt. I think I had come home from Hallmark Cards and gone to visit my high school. So, and I went to an art high school, and just very quickly, my parents did not think that the academics were strong enough. So I got into the art program at my high school and ended up there at the college prep program. Then I didn't take an art class until my sophomore year, and it was not in the official art program. It was like a main building thing. And she was just like, I think we got to get you down to the annex. And they just let me go down there during my lunches, stay after school, because the art students had an extra period of art that they would take after school. And I took classes for no credit for like a year and a half. And then they finally managed to get me some credit. And so I was able to graduate from high school with a scholarship to go to SVA, School of Visual Arts, and 2 years of credit in the visual arts program that I was never really officially in. And if she hadn't gone that extra mile for me, there's no telling, where I would be. And there's teachers like that I've met on every level, but she is the big one, is Sherry Surratt.
I was in a gifted and talented program in the Kansas City, Missouri School District that had just implemented it in the late 80s. And I was in a gifted and talented class from the first grade all the way to the 7th grade. And I went to a new school every year, every single school year. But they didn't have it for middle school, which was crazy. And obviously, growing up where I grew up, growing up in a single parent household. My mother didn't have enough money to send me to a private school. So 7th and 8th grade were miserable for me. You know, I was so used to getting that gifted and talented curriculum work. And they just kind of threw me back into, you know, general population. But when I entered high school in the 9th grade, I met Mary Rogers, and she was this beautiful chocolate woman with very classy. She had a short jerry curl, and she wore glasses, and she reminded me of, Gwendolyn Brooks, who's, one of my favorite poets. And I swear, I had been writing rap lyrics, and I just started writing short stories in the 5th grade. So I enjoyed her class when I was a freshman. And I swear, everything I turned in was, I could have won the Newbery in her eyes. You know, everything was perfect. She thought everything that I turned in was great. I knew it, obviously it wasn't, but I think she saw something in me, and I think she appreciated my imagination. She appreciated my effort, and I had her again in my senior year. I had her in AP English. It was a creative writing class, and it was the same thing. Everything I turned in was, she was just so encouraging. And now she is she teaches in Florida. She's a junior college professor, and I'm Facebook friends with her. And every time I win anything or any book news happens, I always thank her. I just thought it was awesome that we won the NCTE award for, I'm Every Good Thing. And I dedicated that to her. She was my first teacher. Obviously, my mom was my first teacher and, most encouraging, but I always, remember Miss Rogers, Hopefully I get a chance to go. I haven't seen her in decades, so it'll be great to go and thank her personally.
Wow, that is
Derrick,
really great. Arisha, this is the absolute last question.
It's not a question.
A comment.
I promise. It's my comment. I just want to say, Derrick, you might have heard this before, but I have in my notes that your writing reminded me of Gwendolyn Brooks.
Oh.
When I was reading your book, I was thinking of We Real Cool. It came to mind.
Cool. Yeah.
And I know I'm going to talk about that later in the show, but when you said that, I just had to let you know that I have that. That's what you felt like when I was reading it. Thank
you very much. She was maybe my second crush as a kid. My first crush was Roberta Flack. That's the first woman I fell in love with, but my second was Gwendolyn Brooks.
That is really great. Thank you both so very much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we absolutely love the book. To stay up to date with Derrick's work, please visit his website, derrickdbarnes.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at author DDB. That sounds like a 90s R&B group. You please visit Gordon's website at gordoncjames.com to see his latest creations. His work is absolutely stunning. It's all on his website. You can also follow him on Twitter at GordonCJamesArt. When we return, we'll discuss instructional strategies if you want to teach. I am every good thing. We'll be right back. Instructional strategies if you want to teach. I am every good thing.
All right, y'all, I'm going to jump in on this one because I've been waiting since for so long. So I actually taught this book when I was teaching virtually last year, but it's completely applicable to in-person learning. And I did it over multiple days. So like the first day, we just read the book and that was it. And then the next day we talked about, well, what were the things? And when I say next day, I mean next class, which as a music educator could be like every 3, every 5. It depends where you're at. And the next one was, well, what did you really like? Well, what stood out to you? Or what artwork really stood out to you? And we talked about that. And then the next class, because we're always doing other things besides just one thing in music class, I said, what is your I am statement? How would you finish the I am? And we used a Jamboard for it. And that was a fun lesson in Jamboards. If you've never used one, it does take some etiquette on how to use a Jamboard. And you could do it with like different, like a Nearpod and that kind of thing with a collaborative board, but you can't move it around as easily on the back end. So we taught how to do it. And they put little Post-its of what is their I am. Next class is, I said, okay, look at all your ideas. How would you put them together so we could have 2 to 4 ideas combined? And then they said, well, let's put these together and let's put these together. The next class, we voted on what, and we took the top 3 and we turned it into a rondo. And in music, rondo form, it has an A section that comes back, and then it has a B, a C, and a D. And the A section, I don't know where it came from, but the spirits of Barnes and James came to me, and all I did was I did this. I am every good thing. 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 And then we would go to the pairing that they chose of what words they put together. And then someone would say it. I said, you got to say it rhythmically. You can't be boring. There has to be some to it. So then they would read it. Then we do the A section. Then we do the C section. We come back to the A section. Like the A section, that annoying little brother that won't go away and you wish they kind of would. Or the little cousin, they're like, oh yeah, I've got one of those. And then the D section, and we finished with the A section. And they could add movement to it. And every class was different. I did this with 3rd grade through 5th grade. And it was a blast. And I just really, really enjoyed doing that. Thank you for letting me share.
I'll piggyback off of you, Kelly. So I teach this in universities as well as making sure they understand what I poetry is, because it's so important for kids to be able to see that. And the research shows that when you put yourself into that person, then you're going to remember more about them. And so I poetry is great no matter what subject you're teaching. But then for this one, this is like a good little Christmas present. We're coming close to that. Having kids make their own I poetry. And then my son's teacher last year, she took a picture of my son, and then she put his I poem like as an overlay over his face. And that was a present that I got. And so then I had read this book, and I got it for her for Christmas. And so being able to use this and then giving this to the caregivers of a little Christmas present, no matter what grade they are, because they can create their own I poetry. They can use Kelly's I poetry, if you're doing it in that way, but be able to do that and then give it to the caregivers that they have, or then being able to give it to someone special in their lives so that they can personify how they are every good thing and things that are very important to them. But then also being able to give that to someone, because as a mom, that present that I got last year was the best present, because I got to see what my kid saw in himself. And so being able to see them into the poem was just amazing. So that's just a little Christmas present that you could also add into it.
I think that this book would be great for community building. I think a lot of teachers look at community building as something we only do at the beginning of the school year, a get to know you something, but it's definitely something that should be embedded throughout the school year. I think sometime after the kids have gotten the chance to learn each other and work with one another, that they can use this book as inspiration. This book is saying, I am every good thing, but then turning it and saying, if they are assigned a peer in the class, they can say, she is, and then kind of do a poem based on what their peers are in their classes. And I think that's cool, because you don't know what people think of you until they tell you. And so giving kids an opportunity to tell one another, how they come off to other people, I think would be interesting. But keeping it positive, of course.
Well, and we hit on earlier about just the metaphors throughout the book. The figurative language in this book is like an ELA teacher's dream. And I actually have borrowed this particular copy from my former middle school where I was the media coordinator. So like I keep this had put this in our middle school library, because those are some of the standards that they deal with, is the figurative language. And this is such a wonderful book. It's so rich with that, and you could tie it into then like the what are you, and coming up with your own metaphors and for who you are and how you see yourself.
Well, and I am a huge fan of a text set and piggybacking one book off another and just spinning and spinning and spinning. And so to me, I immediately thought of another book that was The Best Part of Me. And I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it's all these black and white pictures of elbows and noses and smiles and all these parts, and kids telling in their own words why that was the best part of them. And so I could see taking this I am language and then focusing on what makes them special by sharing that best part of me as well, and making a class book out of that. So I think that, you really could do a lot with that empowerment piece, but also focusing on a specific area as well.
I could see school counselors using this resource as well, as they're helping students to develop a positive self-image. Now a lot of our students are really dealing with self-esteem and having low self-esteem and a negative self-image. So being able to use this text really just to encourage them and doing some work around self-esteem, I think could be really powerful.
Pamela took my idea, but that is exactly what I've done with my fourth grade students. It fits perfectly with the figurative language standard. I find that kids have a hard time with metaphors. They can easily more pick up like similes. But this book does a really good job at helping kids understand metaphors and the meaning behind it. So I'm a sponge. What does that mean? And so I was trying to get kids to kind of come up with their metaphors, like, oh, I'm a really good basketball player. Well, how could you use imagery and metaphors to represent that? So yes, it's definitely an ELA teacher's dream.
So earlier in the show, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when Marlo said guidance counselors using this, it made me think about also having kids write a letter to their future selves using that same language. Remind yourself, because someday in the future, you may need to be reminded of who you are, and you may be feeling low and you may need that letter. And I thought, that could be a powerful opportunity as well. And, a lot of times kids don't have practice with that letter writing skill either. So it's a little writing thing, a little social emotional, tie all that together also.
Love it.
I was going to say, earlier in the show, I kind of talked about being really excited about this part. I was just waiting for my chance. Are you familiar with Gwendolyn Brooks' poem, We Real Cool? No? It's really short. I'm just going to read it. But it starts like this. It says, the pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. We real cool. We left school. We lurk late. We strike straight. We sing sin. We thin gin. We jazz June. We die soon. And I think that this will be cool to pair with I Am Every Good Thing, because it's the exact opposite. Like, these things they're showing a group of guys who have made probably some bad decisions or not living like their best life. And there's some self-realization in there, like, oh, we've done all these things. We didn't go to school. We're doing we're hanging out late. We die soon. This is a path to destruction, versus looking at this book and there's so much light. And these kids in this book have a future. And then just having kids compare and contrast that, I think is so cool. And when I read this book, I automatically thought of Gwendolyn Brooks, and I wondered, like, what if the kids, these pool player kids, what if they would have had this type of book when they were younger? What if they would have been able to see themselves like this, And
I think that we talked about this earlier in the show. This book is for kindergarten through endless. And there's so many different ways to have it be applicable.
And I have to add one extra thing. So I had this little boy I taught in 2nd grade who, when I saw this picture, I was like, does he know this kid? Like, and he did not have the parent support that believed in him, but I knew he was worthy to be loved. And I just hope that I have given that to him in that 1 year I taught him, so that he knew that he is every good thing. And even if he doesn't get that at home, he at least can get that from school. And so being able for us as teachers to be able to use this to teach our kids how important they are, it just like breaks my heart, but I know that's what our role is, and that's where we can make a difference for them.
This will
One
be
of the
really
things that
powerful.
we're talking about, sorry, Marlo.
This will be really powerful to share with beginning teachers during new teacher orientations as well, to really set a tone of taking this particular lens when we are looking at all children and really looking for the good and highlighting the good, because it can be so powerful for them and for us as well.
Yes. Earlier we were talking about, like, Kelly and I saw the one image differently at the beginning. And then we talked about like the scene with the tree and like different interpretations of it. And I think especially at the higher levels, when you're talking about like this book can work K-12, like take it to the high school level and talk about like your interpretations and your connotation and denotation. Like we know what these words mean, but what do they mean to you? Like beyond the definition of the words, what do you see in this image? What do you hear in these words? Like, how do you interpret that? And I think you could really do a lot, because we all have different perspectives going into things. And I love hearing other people's perspectives on something that I saw one way and I'm like, oh, I think that would be a great way to take that in.
Well, I counted the lines in the book. There are about 56 sentences in the book. And I was thinking you could give every kid, well, hopefully none of us have 56 in our class. I've had 40 something before, but hopefully nobody has 56. But you could get every kid a line and have them interpret it however they want it to. If they wanted to continue writing a story or turn it into a poem or make it art or a song or whatever, I think it would be cool. And then see how it all comes together at the end.
That is so great. There's so many different things that we could do with this book. Kelly P., what a great suggestion for the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club. So if you have not picked up your copy of I Am Every Good Thing, please make sure you do it. You will not regret it. And as Kelly W. said, it would make a great Christmas gift. It really would. We want to thank everybody so much for watching this episode of the Tar Heel Teachers Book Club. We'll see you next month. Thank you.